Part 6 opens with an older Tommy Jarvis who shows no resemblance or is not in the same fractured state of mind as Part 5 Tommy. Tommy is going to the gravesite of Jason Voorhees along with his Institute associate, Hawes. He wants to make sure Jason is truly dead and never coming back. Tommy and Hawes dig up Jason and open his grave, a clever echo to the opening of the previous film. In a fit of rage, Tommy grabs a steel fence post and drives it into Jason. As Tommy preps gasoline to burn Jason's remains, a bolt of lightning hits the fence post, stabbed into Jason. And with this incident, Jason is back from the dead. Hawes bites the dust pretty quickly, with Tommy running for his life away from Jason. Tommy tries to warn the local sheriff's office, but they pass him off as a nut job. During Tommy's absence, Crystal Lake has gone through an image change. Now called Forest Green, the area is trying to hide their past and move on. Meanwhile, Jason is terrorizing the campgrounds, putting the counselors and the children in danger. Can Tommy put an end to Jason before any innocents are harmed? This film marks a dramatic change of direction for the series. First, this was the origin for Zombie Jason, turning the killer from reacting to damage to being truly unstoppable. He has no worry for his own safety when killing people. He's dead after all. Part 6 plays up a lot of comedy. When Horseshack from Welcome Back Kotter is in the film's opening sequence and Jason has a James Bond-like intro, you know you're not in for a serious movie. Up to this point, the series took itself pretty seriously in how they presented Jason and the scenarios of the survivors. Under Tom McLaughlin, the film went into a self-aware meta-fest over 10 years before Scream. The Gravedigger breaks the fourth wall. Forest Green has referential districts like Cunningham and Carpenter. There is a store named Karloff's. This is the first film to make a big deal about the events happening on the date of Friday the 13th, like a full moon in The Wolfman. Enough said. The kill sequences feel like a series of vignettes. The paintball team-building exercise has 3 people getting decapitated simultaneously, like the Three Stooges getting the trio slap. There's the preppy couple with the guy who looks like a dollar store Billy Crystal. Maybe they did try to get Billy Crystal, but either he said no or they just couldn't afford him. I counted at least 3 or 4 references in the scene with Darren and Elizabeth facing Jason. We have Dirty Harry, Hansel and Gretel, and the American Express card. Darren and Elizabeth try to play on Jason's sense of self-preservation of the previous films, which royally backfires on them. That might be too much in a short period of time. One gag that had me opening my eyes was a little girl reading the Jean-Paul Sartre's No Exit. I'm not sure if this was to be a throwaway gag or if it has an actual meaning. To summarize the play, 3 people are in a waiting room that turns out to be hell. These 3 people are to forever be stuck with one another in the room. It's the source of the Sartre quote, "Hell is other people." If you take this quote in the literal sense, that might be an accurate description of Jason's predicament. His version of hell is the counselors and the people he has to kill for eternity. He will never be able to rest. He will forever have to kill. We get the Jason head tilt for the first time in this film, as we'll get later in Jason Takes Manhattan. It's only ever played up for comedy when compared to the Michael Myers head tilt. When Michael Myers has done it, it was either the admiration of his handiwork when he pinned the guy against the wall in the first Halloween film, or when Laurie calls his name in Part 2. Tell me who you think has the better head tilt, Jason or Michael? As pointed out by Wes of Gun Media in a forum post, Part 6 feels very much like an old Universal horror film. Jason is given the Frankenstein monster treatment, cementing his own status as an icon of the 80s, much like Frankenstein's monster or Dracula in the 1930s. Jason's resurrection via electricity, the misty, foggy woods, the stormy night, all these have that old-school monster movie feel. The scene with Jason and a little girl immediately reminded me of the monster meeting the little girl in 1931's Frankenstein. And this brought up an intriguing element. The Friday the 13th series hasn't really touched on this before. We know Mrs. Voorhees had an axe to grind, literally with the counselors, and Jason took up the murderous mantle in films after her. Yet we know very little of Jason's experience with other children. How did Jason get along with other kids? Did they ostracize him, or did they just treat him as a normal kid? When Jason stares down the little girl, would he have done her harm, or would his mind snap back to when he was a little boy among children? For a movie that plays up the comedy, this was one of the few poignant moments, if not the most, in the entire series. If there wasn't enough firsts for this film, we have an established means of killing Jason. To kill Jason, he needs to be drowned in the waters of Crystal Lake. It sounds like a logical means to take him down. A villain always needs a measure of defeat, much like Dracula has the stake through the heart or the Wolfman with silver. One more first. This is the first time where a man has the extensive climactic battle with Jason Voorhees. You can say Megan is the final girl, but her interaction with Jason is limited. Tommy Jarvis brings the fight to Jason in the end. This is Tommy Jarvis's movie. This is the completion of his arc, starting with Part 4 and continued with Part 5. Harry Manfredini continues his streak as the film music composer. The most recognizable music cue in the film is the sting when Jason suddenly appears. But fans of the game will recognize it as the music cue when Jason grabs a counselor. Heavy music by Alice Cooper doesn't hurt either, but a song like Teenage Frankenstein might be a little too on the nose. Martin Becker, the effects artist of Part 5, returns and handles the makeup effects for this film. He does a fine job offering some decent kills. We have a head rip, a head crush, a knife through the head, a throwing knife right between the eyes. The sheriff getting bent over backwards sounds good on paper, yet looks awkward in execution. But my favorite has to be the face through the wall, leaving an imprint from the impact. It looks like the same effect as Freddy in the wall in the original Nightmare on Elm Street when they use spandex. The cast is probably my favorite of the series. I really like this group of characters. Personally, I'm glad the film scrapped the whole Tommy becomes Jason ending of Part 5, but they still play up the Tommy is mentally unstable angle. Tom Matthews' Tommy Jarvis is likable and headstrong. He's finally the Van Helsing to Jason's Dracula that has been missing in the series. He has great chemistry with Megan, played by Jennifer Cook. Cook's youthful recklessness plays a nice dichotomy to Jarvis's straight-laced manner. David Kagan as Sheriff Michael Garris is a shade of gray in the tradition of Harry Cooper from Night of the Living Dead. We're not supposed to take in a liking to him, but he has an understandable motivation: to protect his daughter and keep his town safe. We understand his apprehension when it comes to dealing with Tommy Jarvis, given Jarvis's past history. With the exception of Court, played by Tom Fridley, I like the counselors the film presents. Renee Jones as Sissy and Carrie Noonan as Paula are characters that don't grate on you. Both have a charm about them. These are characters that I enjoyed watching and didn't want to see them die. That was the intended reaction Tom McLaughlin wanted from the audience towards these characters, and for me, he made it work. If Darren looks familiar, that's because he's Tom Goldwyn. He was in the recent Belko Experiment. He was in Ghost with Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. He's the voice of Disney's Tarzan. Darren was his first ever role, and it opened a whole career. Good for him. I'm surprised so many have listed this as their favorite Friday the 13th film. This film went into a different direction, much like Part 5, but fans seem to be much more receptive to the self-aware, self-deprecation humor, as opposed to the psychological thriller angle. To each their own. I enjoyed the approach to Part 5, but Part 6 is enjoyable in its own right. Probably more than it has any right to.